Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Linda Hello, aka Dragon Rose. In my first video, I gave a short history of my uncle's life, but that was only the tip of the iceberg. If you have not watched the documentary, Light, the Father J documentary, I highly recommend it because it gives wonderful visuals of some of the events I have mentioned already and ones you will hear about from Father J's books. And best of all, you will see and hear my uncle as he shares his experiences and thoughts. Just a heads up, please keep in mind that I am posting images of the book's pages, which means I have to first scan them, clean them up a bit so that they are readable. The books are paperback, so the visuals will reflect that. This is a project of love and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, don't forget to hit the like button. And also, don't forget to subscribe so you get notifications of future videos. Now, let me begin with book number 1, On My Way Home, an autobiography of a priest in today's world. As you can see, Father J autographed the title page of my book, and I believe he did the same for other family members as well as friends. In fact, the last 2 books I purchased from an online used book dealer had inscriptions to people I did not know personally, but believed to be distant relatives. Note that there is a copyright page. I contacted my cousin and she gave me permission to share Father J's work with all of you. An interesting note about this first book is that the image on the cover is actually from one of Father J's paintings called Seeking the Eternal City. The dedication of this book lists his sisters who had passed before the time of his writings. As of now, all of his siblings have passed or gone home, as he would have called it. Acknowledgments. In loving gratitude to my family for the continued support through the years and for their encouragement in producing my first book. In this acknowledgement, he says those called to the next life are placed in parentheses. As I've already mentioned, everyone has already passed on, gone home, so to speak, except for my Uncle Craig. He goes on to say, my brother Anthony and his wife Marianne, my sisters Lillian Samonie and her husband Joseph, Philip and Rose Samonie, Elizabeth Nader and her husband Simon, Craig and Jackie Cebulski, Anthony Latif, and Jenny. And last but not least, my grandmother, Marie Hello, and my grandfather, Bill. I am so grateful to the following. Most Reverend Thomas J. Gumbleton, Reverend Edward L. Schurman, and several other priests who offered meaningful and constructive advice in the publication of my experiences. Sally Owen, who helped me to organize and edit the material contained in the book. Joan Lemieux, Mike Assemani, Mary Marchio, Beatrice Marks, and Joan Cullinan for their time spent in reading and reviewing the manuscript, and members of the prayer group whose discussion and prayers contributed strongly in motivating me to write the story of my life. Preface. All life begins with one source. That same source, or creator, is the beginning and the end of all things, the Alpha and the Omega. Each of us spends a certain amount of time on this planet, and then we return to our source. In a very real sense, we are all on our way home. Everybody's story is like a flower that unfolds in its proper time. I believe that for me, the time is now. I would like to share my story with you on my way back home. Allow me to begin by saying I have over 133 nieces and nephews. They know very little, if anything, about my personal life. I decided in the beginning to relate my life story for them. Later, I decided to include my friends and other relatives, especially when I discovered that my experiences were considered rare. I had previously thought that everyone had such experiences. I was truly surprised to learn the opposite. I am a Roman Catholic priest. I was ordained in 1956 but the experiences I have had through the years have greatly altered my view of the priesthood, my perception of God, and the meaning of truth. I have witnessed visions, healings, and had several out-of-body experiences. The most unforgettable of all my experiences was being awakened for 40 consecutive nights at 4 a.m. Each night consisted of a different mystical experience and most enlightening instruction. Several months later, when direct communication was achieved, I was especially excited when given answers to questions I had been wrestling for many years. I wanted to know, where was God when my parents both died suddenly, just before I took my vows to be a priest? In communication with God or his helpers and angels, is it real or imagined? Is there any proof? Is God the violent punisher that many believe him to be? Why was 4 a.m. such a special time to be awakened and enlightened? In fact, I had hundreds of questions that needed to be answered and explained. They were, and I am still overwhelmed with gratitude. What I learned always encouraged me to remain in the priesthood. Even the practice of yoga, which prepared me for a quantum leap in meditation and experiences that took me into the world of metaphysics, affirmed my work as a priest. At the early age of 7, I had an experience which was far beyond my understanding. For over an hour, I witnessed a vision over Mount Elliott Cemetery in Detroit, Michigan, close to the monastery where the saintly Father Silanus Casey lived. I was not alone. 2 of my sisters and my brother were present and saw exactly the same thing. As a result of the vision, etched in my memory all through my life, was a certainty that there truly exists invisible, mystical realities about which we know little or nothing, but they were nevertheless real. In my early teens, I was present at 3 extraordinary healings that could never be explained by present-day medicine or science. The conflict between what I was experiencing and what I believed was slowly becoming an issue within me. Less than a year before I was ordained a priest, I had a past life experience. Not just seeing, not just remembering, much more than that. Directly in front of the Sun Pyramid of Teotihuacan, outside Mexico City, I suddenly went into trance and actually was reliving the life of a Mayan architect at the time the pyramids were built. The whole detailed story is covered in the book. Like many adults living today, the world I knew as a child no longer exists. Not just from the viewpoint of scientific progress, television, space age, computers, etc., but also experiencing a glimpse from time to time of the world beyond this one, and the ongoing activity of God in my life. The veil that separates us from the world of spirit is very thin. The interaction between both worlds has always been accepted as an important part of sacred scripture. But today it is emphasized greatly through a variety of books and television documentaries that affirm the existence of angels sent by God to help us or the direct action of God in our lives. I no longer expect the concept of heaven, as I believed in my youth, out there waiting for me. Rather, it has taken on a totally different perspective in the light of Jesus' teachings revisited. He said in Luke 17:21, "The coming of the kingdom does not admit of observation, and there will be no one to say, 'Look here, look there,' for you must know the kingdom of God is within you." Some versions may say, "among you." Regardless, the meaning is clear enough. He did not say it will take place at a future event. God's kingdom is here and now. It is a most interesting time to be on this planet. We have most certainly entered the age of spirit, as Teilhard de Chardin, the famous Jesuit anthropologist, has pointed out. Stories of divine assistance are coming from all walks of life with the same theme: spiritual help, unconditional love, forgiveness, and another chance to change one's life. You are welcome to walk with me as I recall the strange path my life took and how my experiences affected my understanding of reality. The incredible mystical, cosmic, and spiritual experiences have given me a totally new perspective, one that is life-giving, productive, and fulfilling. The one single hope I cherish is that the story of how God awakened my spirit and changed the course of my life will assist you on your way home, where together we shall be blessed with joy and peace of God. Reverend J. Samonie, February 1998. Prologue. The following is an example of an exciting moment, truly a turning point in my priestly ministry. Here is a brief account of what happened. It was early evening on November 17, 1970. I struggled with the cold wind and crossed the street to the dimly lit church. As I approached the entrance, I realized I had taken on more work than I could possibly handle. That left me no time for myself. From early morning till late evening, my life was not my own. Almost angrily, I pushed the door open and immediately began to pace back and forth rapidly, nervously. I found myself talking out loud, complaining that I had given up just about everything. I even began shouting, "What more do you want from me?" Exhausted, I stopped. Something was happening. A very bright light was blocking my view of the altar. At first I thought it was someone's headlights bouncing off some object in the church, but then as I watched, it began to take the shape of a sphere of light. Brilliant and almost blinding, an object I would have quickly turned away from. But, as a matter of fact, I was actually attracted to it, invited to it. My mind was brought to complete silence. Then came an even greater surprise. Suddenly, a dazzling being emerged inside this light, making the sphere a mere shadow of itself. This being of light appeared to be the embodiment of all the knowledge, wisdom, holiness, and power that I could ever imagine. I realized I was standing in the presence of the one whom I had been serving all my life. There was no doubt about it. Filled with a sense of unworthiness, I fell to my knees and wept. After the initial shock, I managed to slowly raise my eyes to see if the being of light was still there. His eyes were looking directly at mine, and all fear dissipated instantly. He continued to smile as he motioned for me to stand. For the first time in my life, I understood the meaning of unconditional love. No words were spoken, but the message of divine love was loud and clear. For me, it was a peak moment of enlightenment and acceptance. The vibrations that filled the church were so warm and comforting, I wish in my heart I could stay there forever. This tiny matchbox-shaped church suddenly took on the radiance and beauty of a cathedral. Regardless of the unusual feelings I had toward myself with traces of guilt and fear, and sometimes resentment toward my situation, I now felt innocent, free, guiltless, and yes, even holy. Then slowly, the church returned to an unwelcome darkness. It was as before, but I wasn't. I felt like I was transformed, and my hopeless schedule now seemed workable, changeable, acceptable. After that wonderful visit, I returned to the parish house, jubilant and spiritually energized. I thought of Peter, James, and John on the mountaintop with Jesus when they saw him transfigured, and compared his face to the sun in all its brightness. As they were descending the mountain, they knew in their hearts that witnessing the blinding appearance of Jesus' true nature was needed to fortify them for the challenging events they were about to face. I seemed to have that feeling inside of me as well. I was living in the fringe inner city of Detroit at the time, and life seemed to present one stressful situation after another. But with my spirit strengthened, I was ready to face the days ahead because I knew I was not alone, ever. Chapter 1. My Earliest Memories. Blood was gushing from my face, and I started to pass out. I was being carried by my Aunt Sultana. We had to call my mother's closest friend's aunt, to Deaconess Hospital on Jefferson Avenue near Belle Isle in Detroit, Michigan. By now, with my head tilted back as when one sleeps, both eye sockets were covered with blood and I couldn't see. I was afraid I had lost my sight. I cried. I was a little over 3 years old. The cause of what happened was purely accidental. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. My brother Tony and my sister Rose were arguing. They had started throwing things at each other, as children do, and I was standing behind one of the two posts that held up the back porch, some 10 feet away from my sister Rose. Tony threw a piece of slate at her, but she was protected by standing behind the screen door. I was safe where I was, but just when I thought it was safe to peek out from behind the post, my brother had just sent a piece of slate sailing toward the screen door. However, the slate, being flat and thin, moved unpredictably in the air and curved toward me instead. Before I could react, I was hit literally between the eyes. When the doctor cleared the blood away, I was told to open my eyes. I could see perfectly. The family, me too, sighed in relief. The stitches hurt, but I had my sight, and I carried a scar at the top of my nose to this day. I was actually born in that same house. I have told people when they ask me where I was born, in Detroit, just behind Deaconess Hospital. It throws them off for a moment because it sounds as if I was actually born in the alley behind the hospital. Then the light dawns on them that our house was there. Not long after I had the nose job, the family moved from Larned, about a mile away, to Mount Elliott and Waterloo, located across the street from Mount Elliott Cemetery, still on the Lower East Side of Detroit. Again, one of my earliest recollections goes back to an incident that happened when I was 4 years old. Monsignor Farah, one of my many cousins, was visiting our home along with some friends. We lived upstairs above my parents' grocery store. During the conversation, I was not sure what brought it on. He came over to me and was on one knee in order to reach down to my level and asked, "Do you want to become a priest like me someday?" I said, "I don't know." He continued, "Well, here, let me try my Roman collar on you." He took off his collar right there and put it around my neck. He repeated, "Now would you like to become a priest?" I replied, "No." He asked again, "Why not?" "Because the collar was too big," I insisted. He quickly responded, "Well, you won't be wearing this one. When you get bigger, we'll get you one that does fit." "Now would you like to become a priest?" I answered again, "No, I can't." He started to run out of patience. "All right, why can't you?" "Because I don't know what to say to the people in church," I said quite timidly. "You have to spend many years in a special school before you would have to talk to people in church. You will know a lot of things to talk about then. It will be easy. So tell me, do you wish to become a priest someday?" I thought of the time when I saw an older priest in church who wore beautiful red garments and a staff of shiny metal and a tall hat, and I gave my final response to the laughter of everyone present. "I want to be a bushel." When the laughter died down, I was immediately taught what the word bishop meant. Obviously, I knew a little about religion even at a young age. The fact is that we went to church every single Sunday. It was unthinkable to miss. So I knew a little about priests, church, and such things, but I only once heard the word bishop. That day, I added the word to my vocabulary. Chapter 2. The Samonie Heritage. My parents were very religious. In fact, my father Jacob Samonie Sr. was in a monastery in Lebanon for 10 years. He was naturally on his way to becoming a monk for life. However, that was not to be. His uncle, the superior general of the Franciscan order, came to him one day and told him that he would have to leave the monastery. This came as quite a shock, but not as much of a shock as to the reason why. My uncle relayed to him the importance of having a male heir in the Assemani, quote, Samonie, unquote, family. My father was being scheduled to get married to someone he did not even know. In accordance with a custom in the Middle East, and still prevalent in some areas, marriages were arranged by the parents of both parties. My father was betrothed to Mary Fadul in order to raise sons to carry on the family name. As amazing as this sounds, there was never a divorce in the entire town of Hasroun. It was not due to 100% perfect happy marriages by any means. As a matter of fact, it was very difficult to get a divorce. You did not marry a single person, you married a whole family. One family marries into another family. Then there was the influence of the church, who did not permit divorce and remarriage. Add to that was the scandal of being divorced. You would be shunned by everyone and a disgrace to your family. There really was no choice. Interestingly enough, my mother was born on the ocean coming into American waters off of Long Island, New York. She was declared a natural citizen of the United States. She lived here for her first 6 years until her family returned to Lebanon. She had a great desire to become a nun. Rather, she was given in marriage at a young age of 16. She once told me that one of my great aunts was being considered for canonization, a long process in which a person outstanding in holiness is placed in the calendar of saints. I never knew her name or any details about her life. I simply took it for granted that it was true, and my mother, a very down-to-earth person, was not the type to make up stories, so I believed her. With childhood obedience and complete trust, my parents married according to their parents' arrangement. In an effort to have sons, they had a lot of children. They began by having 2 miscarriages. The first child to live was my older sister, Marie. Then came Jenny and Lillian, followed by Maroon. The family was very excited to finally have a son, but Maroon was not around for long. A childhood disease took his life. They kept trying to have a son that would live. 2 more girls followed in succession, Rose and Elizabeth, nicknamed Billy. Still no son. The 9th child was a son named Tony. He lived. They were ecstatic, of course. In order to have a little insurance, they tried again, so I came along, followed by my youngest sister, Jacqueline. I ended up as the 10th child out of 11, with 8 of us reaching adulthood. I recall my sister Marie, who went to heaven in 1980, telling me about Dad's short stay in Nigeria, Africa. He owned a store and had a fairly good business. That did not last. He acquired a bad case of malaria and had to leave the country. Apparently, he was there in the first place because his brother and a partner owned a diamond mine and a mica mine. The mines were a lucrative enterprise. Unfortunately, my uncle never came back from his last visit to the mines. My father's family believed there was a violent, underhanded act that took the life of my uncle, but the family had no actual proof. There was never even an investigation of trying to locate the body. Time was moving on. Marie, the oldest, was born in Lebanon. The rest arrived here in the United States. My parents first went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. My dad got a job in one of the furniture companies. It was not necessary to speak English well as long as you could do the job. The same thing happened when they moved to Detroit, Michigan. Dad worked at Cadillac Motors for 25 years. I still have the pocket watch they gave him as an award for 25 years of faithful service to the company. How a family survived on $15 a week, I have no idea, and a large family at that. There were small raises all the time, but I believe it was my mother's ability to produce good meals with a few dollars that helped make it possible. After leaving Cadillac Motors, my father carried on an unwritten tradition among Lebanese merchants. He opened up a grocery store. It was a good thing, considering all the mouths to feed. Those were wonderful years. We were truly a close family. We lived in the apartment above the store, and we all worked in the store. I remember as a child taking cans out of boxes and putting them on shelves, or putting empty bottles in their proper cases. We ate meals together, we prayed together, we talked to each other. While being in the store so often and so long as a child, I took full advantage of my favorite foods, tomatoes and strawberries. Every opportunity I had, I would pick up the most beautiful tomato and devour it with pleasure. Also, when in season, I picked each strawberry carefully. This was my reward for my hard work in the store. I didn't get paid in money, but choice food was good enough. This continued throughout my life. Years later, even after the store was sold, I still ate much more than my share of tomatoes and strawberries. Then it happened. I suddenly broke out with the ugliest sore somewhere on my face whenever I ate my two favorite foods. Nature had struck back. I must have radically changed the acid balance in my system to the extent that at about age 20 I could no longer eat tomatoes or strawberries without a reaction. Sometimes the open sore would appear right on the tip of my nose or on my lips or near them. What a sad story. But the lesson was clear. Too much of anything is not good. When I reached about 45 years old, I discovered that if I removed the seeds in the tomatoes, I had no reaction. On the other hand, with the strawberries, there was no way to remove all the seeds without losing the strawberry itself. So strawberries are still off limits. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next chapter in Father J. Samonie's book. The documentary that was created in 2004, called Light, the Father J. Samonie documentary, is available on YouTube, and the link will be below in the description.